All right, here we're back again with Roger, and if you're just tuning in, Roger's 99 years old and sharing his history from 1926 up until he entered the business profession. So, Roger, can you keep sharing your professional experiences with us?
Okay, well, like I told you in a previous episode, I was hired to run the Waldo plant of the Calumet Dutch Packing Company that had heretofore had packed peas and corn in retail-sized cans. And the company had bought the Waldo plant because the customers wanted institutional-sized corn, which we didn't have at the Cedar Grove plant where we canned corn. So they bought the plant for that reason, and I was involved in incorporating that production of food service corn at Waldo, even though I didn't know what I was doing all the time. But in order to compensate for my lack of knowledge, see, I didn't take any food courses when I was in Madison. I took all engineering courses, which really related. I mean, we had steam generation, we had power generation, and so forth. So I used all of that in my plant engineering requirements, but I didn't have any food processing courses. After I was offered the job in my mid-senior year, I went over to the food science department to see if I could pick up some courses in my last semester, but nothing worked out, so I just stuck with the engineering, and I said, we'll hoof it when we get at the plant. And in order to make do with my shortcomings, I would participate in all the association activities. We had 100 plants in this, about 100 plants in the state that canned peas and corn. And we had a food processing association. And I got on the technology committees and every committee, and I ended up 12, 15 years later, I got on the board of the food processors. I ended up as president of the Wisconsin Food Processors Association. At the same time, we sold our company to the Larson Company. So I'll back up. We had grown our sales from $350,000 to $3.5 million at Cal Dutch, and we had instituted our food service corn. We bought a continuous cooker which continuously cooked the corn and improved the quality immensely because you could use convection currents for stirring your corn, in effect, while it was rolling through this continuous cooker. Heretofore, you put it in a stationary cooker and you had to cook it twice as long, and it caramelized the corn and just made a different products. So we installed that at Waldo. We installed combines, and the company that sold combines, Combine was a pea viner on wheels. When I started at Waldo, we had six viners at the plant. And we brought the vines in from the field, and we pitched the vines in a pea viner and shelled the peas out of the pods, and the pea vines went up on the pea vine stack, which was right on the plant grounds, which stunk and invited flies and everything else. It was a horrible way to run peas. But somebody came along and said, let's put wheels on a viner. So they basically took a stationary viner, put wheels on it, with self-leveling features built into this combine. So you could combine peas on a side hill, and the hydraulic would kick in and straighten up the combine, so that combine was always level going through the field. And that really helped matters. Then they came out with a later design of the combine that had a lot of automatic features on it, and FMC, the Food Machinery Corporation, said, Raj, we'd like to fly you out to Oregon to look at our H2 combine. They had a new combine. And they knew when they invited me out there that I would take pictures and then sell that combine for them in the States. So I went out there with them, had a nice trip, and went out to Oregon. We're in Multnomah Valley, which is beautiful country out there, and watched this new combine. And I came back with a bunch of pictures, and I told the people it looked like a good machine, and they sold a lot of H2 combines as a right of just paying me for a trip out there. So that worked out fine. So we did keep up with technology in our plants, even though we had old wooden plants that really should have been replaced with concrete buildings. But in 1967, my boss came to me and said, I'm going to retire. What do you think we should do? I said, well, I don't have any money to buy this plant. I think we should sell out to somebody else. So he called Larson Company, and the Larson Company was looking for a production man for their operations. They had 3 plants at Green Bay, Hortonville, and Fort Atkinson. And they had $16 million worth of sales, and we had $3 million, for a total of $20 million. But you can see the trouble that I would be running into, because at Cal Dutch, I made all the decisions as far as production were concerned. And I found out at Green Bay, there was a lot of different departments that I was stepping on their toes. So I got in some trouble, but the people underneath me supported me 100%, but the people above me and on a peer level with me didn't approve of me being there. And I can see their point. I mean, I was an outsider coming from a small company, and I went into the president and I said, somebody should be taking care of environmental matters at the company. Nobody's doing that. He said, you're it. So all of a sudden, I took some quick trips around the company plants, found out we had some real problems. No, did I tell you about the A&W?
No.
Well, I had to go out to Hortonville. We had to build a lagoon, anaerobic lagoon, real quickly, because we had a problem with waste. People think if you're in the food business, you don't have any waste problems, but you really have waste problems. There's a lot of dissolved organic matter that causes trouble with stream pollution and oxygen demand. So I went to design, with the help of an engineering firm, a new lagoon system for Hortonville. And I made a trip down to Hortonville every day for several weeks, and I turned in an expense account, 10 stops at A&W, 75 cents, $7.50. Well, the accountant at the Green Bay, instead of coming to me, he went to the president and said, look what Roger's doing on the expense accounts. He's not following our procedure, which nobody had told me about. My boss at Cal Dutch said, you count your money in your billfold when you leave for a meeting, and you count it when you get back, and that's what you spent for expense account. So that's how I had operated. So the president called me in his office and said, Roger, I understand that you aren't following procedures on your expense account. I said, well, nobody told me how to do it. What was I supposed to do? Well, you're supposed to list each individual item, have a receipt for it, and so forth. I said, okay, I'll take care of that. Walked out of the office and said, come back in here. I sat down again. He said, furthermore, I want you to talk to the rest of the guys around this office and tell them how to eat lunch on 75 cents a day. So he slapped me in the face on one hand and he patted me on the back on the other. So now I've come up, I drove back and forth from Cedar Grove to Green Bay for 3 years because I didn't know if I was going to fit into the organization or not. But I could see that the treasurer was going to be the new president of the company, and the treasurer didn't like anything that had to do with production. And he saw in me somebody that took care of production, and he could take care of the sales and financing. So he was named president of the company. The former production man was given early retirement. It's a kind way of saying it, I guess. And he said, Raj, you're it. Take care of all the production at all of the plants. Now, this was just a couple of years after I got to Green Bay. I moved up to Green Bay in 1970. And it was great for me because he let me do everything just like I was doing at Cal Dutch. And I got along good with the plant people, and I got involved with acquisitions and so forth, and that was my transition to the bigger company. I have a cough. During that period of time, we had opportunities to grow the company. We bought a plant at Cambria, Wisconsin. We bought a plant at Fairwater, Wisconsin. And then one morning I saw in the Wall Street Journal that the Darien plant of Libby McNeil and Libby was for sale in Darien. And I said to my boss, let me go down there and take a look at that plant. He said, I don't want you to go down there. I said, why not? Just let me take a look at it. He said, I know what you're going to do. You're going to go down there and you're going to come back. I said, we should buy it. I said, please. He said, okay, go. So I went down there, and Darien, Wisconsin, just a beautiful agricultural area, beautiful flat land, nice new plant. they canned or froze peas and corn in institutional sized totes, like 1,200 pounds of peas. And evidently the government said they had too large a piece of that business. They had to get rid of some of their production. So they put that plant up for sale. I saw the plant and I couldn't get to a telephone fast enough. We didn't have cell phones. I said, Quint, we have to buy that place. He said, I knew that was going to happen. So 2 weeks later, we were in Chicago, and after some tough negotiating, we ended up with a new plant. So then I was involved with the merger with Cal Dutch to Larson, and then I was the point man for integrating all these acquisitions into the Larson deal. So after you would buy a plant, you'd call them all down to the local restaurant for a chicken dinner and get up there and get enough courage to say we're going to lay 40 people off, but we're going to try to increase the production to take you all back again. But those were, I was the guy that had to face the people and make the thing work afterwards. Interesting.